Commander Jack Donovan wasn't having what anyone would call a good day. Hell, he wasn't having what anyone would call a good decade. 5 years ago, he'd been Commander Donovan of Earth's Interstellar Defense Force. Now he was just Jack, the guy you called when the sewage recyclers on Outpost Station Gamma 12 backed up. Again. "I don't get paid enough for this crap," Jack muttered, quite literally elbowed deep in the station's waste processing unit. "A correction. I don't get paid enough, period." The dishonorable discharge still stung, but not as much as the smell currently assaulting his nostrils. Apparently, the digestive byproducts of 17 different sentient species created a bouquet that could only be described as cosmic horror in olfactory form. His comm unit buzzed. "Donovan, someone better be dying." "Maintenance Chief, please report to Docking Bay 4 immediately," came the station manager's voice, unusually formal and tight. "We have distinguished visitors." Jack rolled his eyes. "I'm kind of in the middle of something here." "Now, Donovan. That's an order." 20 minutes and one hasty decontamination shower later, Jack sauntered into Docking Bay 4, still pulling on his somewhat clean jumpsuit. He stopped short at the sight of the gleaming silver ship occupying most of the bay. It wasn't the ship that made him pause, though. It was the delegation of aliens standing in a tight cluster, looking like they'd smelled something worse than what Jack had just been swimming in. "You've got to be kidding me," Jack muttered under his breath. The station manager, a nervous Andorian named Celts, was practically vibrating with anxiety. "Ah, Donovan. May I present the distinguished representatives of the Galactic Council's High Command?" Jack recognized the species immediately. Luminari. 7 feet tall, 4-armed, with skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. They were known throughout the galaxy for two things: their advanced technology and their absolutely insufferable superiority complex. The tallest Luminari stepped forward, looking down at Jack both literally and figuratively. "This is the human you've selected. It appears suboptimal. Charmed to meet you too, Sunshine," Jack said with a lazy salute. "Jack Donovan, Waste Management Specialist. At your service. What can I do for the esteemed Galactic Council today? Toilet clogged on your fancy ship?" The station manager made a choking sound. Commander Donovan was formerly a decorated officer in Earth's Defense Forces. Former, the Luminari emphasized, all 4 arms crossed simultaneously, how typical. Humans never could maintain their standards. Another Luminari stepped forward, this one with elaborate markings that Jack vaguely remembered indicated some kind of scientist. "We don't have time for this. The situation on Nexus 9 grows more dire by the moment." "Nexus 9? Jack raised an eyebrow. "That's your big mining operation in the SETI cluster, right? The one harvesting quantum crystals." The Luminari exchanged glances, seemingly surprised that a mere human maintenance worker would know this. "Indeed," said the scientist. "The colony is under attack. We've lost contact with 342 personnel in the last solar week alone." "Attack from what?" Jack asked, his interest reluctantly piqued. "An indigenous life form. One that has proven resistant to our most advanced weaponry and tactical approaches." Jack snorted. "So you've got a pest problem." The lead Luminari's skin flashed an angry red. "This is not some minor infestation. This is a Class 12 hostile xenomorph. It has already defeated our most elite warrior squadrons and disabled our defensive grid." Jack said, scratching his stubbled chin. "So you're telling me this thing is unkillable?" "Our most advanced technologies have proven ineffective," the scientist admitted. "We've lost 27 of our most decorated warriors attempting to neutralize it." Jack looked around at the assembled aliens. "And you've come here because—" The station manager cleared his throat. "The Council is requesting assistance from all allied species. They believe a different perspective might be valuable." "Different perspective," Jack repeated slowly. "You mean they're desperate enough to ask the primitive species for help?" He made air quotes with his fingers, enjoying the way the lead Luminari's skin darkened further. "The humans have a reputation for unconventional problem-solving," the scientist said carefully. Jack leaned against a nearby cargo container, a slow smirk spreading across his face. Let me get this straight. Your super-advanced civilization, with all your fancy tech and genetically enhanced warriors, can't handle one creature. And now you're slumming it with us monkeys because you've run out of ideas. If you are not interested, the lead luminary began. Oh, I'm interested, Jack interrupted, pushing himself off the container. Just one question before I agree to anything. This unkillable monster, has anyone tried just shooting it? The lead luminary's skin went practically purple with indignation. We have deployed plasma arrays, quantum disruptors, and chronostasis fields. Jack shrugged. That's not what I asked. Your primitive projectile weapons would be useless against a creature of this magnitude. Jack said, nodding slowly. When do we leave? The luminary blinked all four of their eyes in surprise. You? Accept the mission? Jack grinned, the kind of grin that had gotten him into trouble his entire life. Oh yeah, I wouldn't miss this for the world. Just give me an hour to pack my things. We have all necessary equipment on our vessel. The scientist objected. Jack was already walking away. I'm sure you do, but I'll bring my own tools, thanks. Oh, and tell the ship's quartermaster to make sure there's beer in the galley. Human beer. As he walked away, he heard the station manager apologizing profusely for his behavior. Jack didn't care. For the first time in 5 years, he felt a familiar spark, the one that came before doing something either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Usually both. The Luminari might think they knew everything about the galaxy, but they were about to get a crash course in human ingenuity, and Jack Donovan was going to enjoy being the teacher. The Luminari vessel, the Enlightened Path, because of course that's what they'd named their ship, was as pretentious on the inside as it was on the outside. Everything gleamed with that particular shine that screamed, "We clean this hourly and judge anyone who doesn't." Jack deliberately scuffed his boots on the polished floor as he followed a very annoyed Luminari escort. He'd arrived for departure with a duffel bag slung over one shoulder and a toolbox in the other hand. The escort had tried to take his tools, insisting that primitive implements would not be necessary. Jack had replied that they were welcome to leave without him if they felt that way. 5 minutes of untranslatable alien muttering later, Jack was allowed to keep his stuff. The escort led him to what was clearly a briefing room. A holographic display dominated the center, and around it stood several more Luminari and, to Jack's mild surprise, the representatives from 3 other species he recognized as council members. "The human has arrived," his escort announced with the enthusiasm of someone reporting a sewage leak. All eyes turned to Jack. He gave them a mock salute with the beer bottle he'd already cracked open. "Hope I didn't keep the War Council waiting." A Luminari female stepped forward, her skin patterns more intricate than the others. "I am Chief Science Officer Vila T. Knox. I will be briefing you on the nature of the xenomorphic entity." "It was Jack Donovan." "Looking forward to it," Jack replied, dropping into the nearest chair and propping his feet up on the pristine table. Another alien, a hulking reptilian Draxian with scars crisscrossing his scaled face, growled. "This is the human specialist. He reeks of fermented beverages and insubordination." "And you must be the muscle," Jack replied cheerfully. "Let me guess, you led one of the elite squads that got their asses handed to them by our mystery monster?" The Draxian's hand moved to a weapon at his hip. "I am Security Chief Krax Morvellian, commander of the Council's Special Tactical Division. I lost 17 warriors to this beast. And yet here you are, in one scaly piece," Jack observed. "Interesting leadership style." Before Krax could respond, Vila activated the holographic display. "Let us focus on the matter at hand. This is Nexus 9. A detailed image of a moon appeared, orbiting a gas giant. The surface was cratered and barren, with multiple structures indicating the mining colony. The xenomorph first appeared 28 standard days ago, emerging from the lower tunnel systems that had been newly excavated. Our initial security response was insufficient. The hologram shifted to show surveillance footage of something moving so fast it was just a blur. tearing through a squad of armed Draxians like they were made of paper. "That's not great quality," Jack commented, genuinely interested despite himself. "Got anything clearer?" "The creature disrupts electronic surveillance when in close proximity," Vila explained. "This is our best footage." Jack leaned forward. "So it's either naturally MP generating or it's intelligent enough to know to take out your cameras first. Either way, not good news." Krax looked surprised at Jack's analysis. "It is not intelligent. It is a beast, a predator, nothing more." "A predator that knows to disable your tech before attacking?" Jack raised an eyebrow. "That's one hell of a coincidence." Vila continued as if he hadn't spoken. "We have deployed increasingly sophisticated countermeasures. The hologram showed various weapons being used against the barely visible creature, energy weapons, force fields, even what looked like some kind of time manipulation device. The xenomorph appears to adapt rapidly to our technological approaches. It exhibits properties consistent with quantum uncertainty principles and multiphasic matter states." Jack took a long swig of his beer. "In human English, please." Vila's skin flickered with annoyance. "It can alter its physical state to become partially immaterial when attacked, and it seems to anticipate energy weapon deployments before they occur." "So it's got a sixth sense and can do a ghost impression," Jack translated. "What's it made of? What does it eat? How does it reproduce? Where does it sleep?" The room went silent. Jack looked around at the assembled aliens, who were exchanging uncomfortable glances. "You don't know, do you?" he realized. "You've been so busy trying to kill it with your fancy toys that nobody bothered with basic biology." "The creature consumes the quantum crystal ore," Vila admitted. "But our priority has been neutralization, not study." Jack shook his head and stood up. "Show me what you're bringing to the fight. The weapons, tools, the works." Krax led him to an adjacent room that looked like an armory from a science fiction movie. Sleek, gleaming weapons lined the walls, rifles that probably fired energy bolts, grenades that probably manipulated gravity, and things Jack couldn't even begin to identify. He walked past all of them, examining each briefly before moving on. The aliens watched in growing confusion as he showed no interest in their advanced weaponry. "Do you have anything that doesn't rely on energy projections or quantum mechanics?" Jack asked finally. "Anything physical?" Krax looked offended by the very question. "Why would we resort to primitive kinetic weapons when we have phase disruptors and temporal stasis fields?" "Because they're not working?" Jack suggested dryly. He returned to his duffel bag and began unpacking a heavily modified shotgun, several hunting knives, what looked like high-end camping gear, and a collection of metal canisters. "What are those?" Vila asked, pointing to the canisters. "These?" Jack grinned. "Just some chemicals from the station. Figured they might come in handy." "Those look like cleaning supplies," Krax said dismissively. "Among other things," Jack agreed. "Plus some basic elements from the chemistry lab. Nothing fancy." You intend to clean the xenomorph to death?" another alien asked, clearly baffled. Jack laughed. "Nah. But sometimes the simplest solution is the right one. Your super advanced weapons aren't working. Maybe it's time to try something the creature hasn't adapted to yet, something primitive." "This is absurd," Krax declared. "The human clearly has no comprehension of the threat we face." Jack finished his beer and set the empty bottle on top of the most expensive-looking weapon in the room. "Maybe. Or maybe that's exactly why you brought me along. Because whatever you're doing isn't working, and you're desperate enough to try anything, even listening to a primitive human." He turned to address the entire room. "Here's my first piece of primitive human advice. Know your enemy, not just how to kill it, but everything about it, what it wants, how it thinks, what it's afraid of. And how do you propose we gather this information when the creature kills everyone who encounters it?" Vila asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. Jack smiled, the kind of smile that had made his commanding officers nervous back in the day. "Simple. We're going to set a trap. Not to kill it, just to learn about it." "What kind of trap?" Krax demanded. Jack winked. The kind that only a primitive mind could come up with. The shuttle descended toward Nexus 9 through swirling clouds of metallic dust that glittered eerily in the light of the gas giant dominating the sky. Jack stared out the viewport, taking in the bleak landscape below. Calling this place a moon was technically accurate, but missed the essential hellscape quality of it all. Charming vacation spot, he muttered as they approached the main mining complex, a sprawling industrial facility that gleamed with the same antiseptic perfection as the Luminari ship. At least the parts that weren't torn to shreds. The facility was state-of-the-art until the incident, Vila said from the seat beside him. Despite Krax's objections, she had insisted on accompanying Jack to the surface, the highest expression of council engineering. Jack said, eyeing the massive gashes visible in the dome covering one section of the complex. How's that working out for you? The shuttle docked at what remained of the main landing bay. Jack stepped out, immediately noticing the eerie silence. A mining operation this size should be noisy, bustling with activity. Instead, emergency lighting cast long shadows across empty corridors. Where are the survivors? Jack asked, adjusting the strap of his shotgun. In the secure command center, Vila answered, checking something on her wrist device. Exactly 28 personnel remain, barricaded with enough supplies for another standard week. And how many were here originally? 370. Jack whistled low. That's one efficient killer. Krax emerged from the shuttle behind them, flanked by 4 heavily armed Draxian warriors. The command center is this way. We should join the others immediately. Hold up, Jack said, kneeling to examine the floor. I want to look around first. That would be unwise, Krax growled. The creature could be anywhere. Jack ran his fingers over a set of gouges in the metal flooring. That's kind of the point. I need to see its handiwork up close. Without waiting for a response, Jack began following the trail of destruction, shotgun at the ready. The others had no choice but to follow or be left behind. The damage told a story. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't just powerful, it was methodical. Jack noticed that the worst damage was always around power junctions, computer nodes, and security checkpoints. Your monster has a pattern, he said over his shoulder. It's not random attacks. It's taking out infrastructure, specifically anything that could be used against it. As I said, it adapts, Vila replied, hurrying to keep up. This isn't adaptation, Jack corrected. This is strategy. They reached a laboratory that had been completely destroyed. Equipment lay in ruins, and dark stains on the walls spoke of the fate of the researchers who had worked there. Jack picked up a twisted piece of metal. What were they studying in here? The quantum crystals, of course, Vila said, the primary purpose of this facility. Jack shook his head. No, I mean specifically in this lab. What experiments? Vila consulted her device. According to the facility records, this was Lab 7, focused on resonance properties of the crystals for potential use in communication technology. Resonance properties, Jack repeated thoughtfully. Sound? Before Vila could answer, a clatter from deeper in the facility made everyone freeze. Krax's warriors raised their weapons, their scales bristling with tension. Movement in Section 12B, one of them reported quietly. Multiple readings. Multiple? Jack frowned. I thought there was only one creature. There is, Krax insisted. The sensors must be malfunctioning. Or someone's still alive down there, Jack suggested. Let's go see. See. Despite Krax's objections, they moved deeper into the facility, following the mysterious readings. The damage became more extensive, walls torn open, ceiling panels ripped away, and entire sections exposed to the thin atmosphere of the moon, but now sealed by emergency force fields. They entered what had once been a maintenance bay. Jack's practiced eye noted the tools scattered everywhere, some of them missing or arranged in peculiar patterns. Someone's been using these, he said, recently. Recently. A clattering sound came from behind a partially collapsed storage unit. Crax's warriors immediately aimed their weapons, but Jack held up a hand. "Hold your fire," he called out. "We're not here to hurt you. If someone's there, come on out." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a panel shifted, and a dirty human face peered out from a hidden compartment. "Holy shit," the face said. "Another human out here? Am I hallucinating again?" "You're not hallucinating," Jack assured him. "Name's Jack Donovan. These fine folks brought me in to help with their little pest problem." The man crawled out from his hiding place, a makeshift shelter cleverly constructed among the maintenance equipment. He was rail-thin, his jumpsuit stained and torn, but his eyes were sharp and alert. "Milo Quinn, colony engineer." "Well, former colony engineer, current survivor by the skin of my teeth." Crax stepped forward. "How have you remained alive when all others outside the command center have perished?" Milo grinned, revealing a chipped tooth. "Because I'm not an idiot. I know how to hide, and I know how to stay quiet. That thing hunts by sound and energy signatures. All your fancy tech might as well be ringing the dinner bell." Jack grinned. Finally, someone talking sense. "What can you tell me about this creature, Milo?" "Indeed. The engineer glanced nervously at the Luminari and Draxians. "Not much they haven't already figured out, I'm sure, it being so advanced and all." "Humor me," Jack said, noticing Milo's meaningful look. "Pretend I'm just a dumb human who doesn't know anything." Milo caught on immediately. "Well, for starters, it showed up right after they drilled into the deep cavern system. The one all the preliminary scans said not to touch because of unusual energy readings." Beela's skin flickered with embarrassment. The quantum crystal deposits were richest in that area. The council determined the potential benefits outweighed the risks. "How'd that risk assessment work out?" Milo asked sarcastically. Jack intervened before the conversation could devolve further. "So it came from underground. What else?" "It's smart," Milo said. "Learns fast. The first attacks were just animal, raw. But it figured out our tech almost immediately. Started targeting the power systems, the communications, the weapons. Now it's hunting systematically." "And you survived by?" Jack prompted. "Going analog," Milo replied with a grim smile. "No powered tools, no comms, nothing that gives off an energy signature. I move around using the maintenance tunnels. They're shielded to prevent interference with the sensitive equipment. The creature rarely goes in them." Jack nodded slowly. "That tracks with what I was thinking. This thing evolved on a moon filled with quantum crystals. It probably perceives energy fields the way we perceive light. Your advanced tech is like setting off flares. While primitive mechanical tools are virtually invisible to it," Vila concluded, her scientific curiosity clearly piqued. "Fascinating." "Not just invisible," Milo added. "I think it might actually be vulnerable to certain physical properties that don't exist in its normal environment." "Like what?" Jack asked. "Well, I managed to hurt it once," Milo said, lowering his voice. "It cornered me in the chemical storage. I panicked and threw a container of industrial coolant at it. The stuff splashed on its hide, and it actually screamed. First time I ever heard it make a noise, then it ran away." Jack's eyes lit up. "What kind of coolant?" "Standard hydrogen-methane mix, super cooled." Milo shrugged. "Nothing special." "Nothing special to us," Jack corrected, "but to a creature that might exist partially in a quantum state. Cold might collapse its wave function, force it to fully materialize." Vila looked at Jack with new respect. "That is an astute hypothesis. Don't sound so surprised," Jack smirked. "Some of us primitives paid attention in physics class." A distant shriek echoed through the facility, sending shivers down everyone's spine. It was followed by a crashing sound that seemed to come from multiple directions at once. "It knows we're here," Milo whispered. "It always knows." "Damn." "Then we'd better move," Jack said decisively. "Milo, I need you to show me the maintenance tunnels, the chemical storage, and anything else that might help us." "You have a plan?" Crax asked skeptically. Jack exchanged a look with Milo. The beginnings of one. But first, we need to understand this place better than the monster does. As they moved out, Jack whispered to Milo, "Got any alcohol in your hideout?" "I wish," Milo replied. "Why?" "Because I'm starting to think we might need more than just cold to beat this thing. We might need fire too." "This has to be the stupidest plan I've ever heard," Krax declared, his scales flaring with indignation. "And I fought alongside Traxian berserkers." They were huddled in Milo's surprisingly well-appointed hideout, nestled deep within the maintenance tunnels. Jack had sketched out his plan using a piece of charcoal on the wall, complete with stick figures and arrows that looked like they'd been drawn by an enthusiastic 5-year-old. "Stupid is relative," Jack replied, tapping the crude diagram. "What's really stupid is trying the same high-tech approach over and over when it clearly doesn't work." Vila studied the drawing with her head tilted. "You truly believe that common chemical compounds and mechanical traps will succeed where quantum disruptors failed?" "I don't believe it," Jack said. "I know it. This creature evolved in an environment saturated with quantum energy. Your fancy weapons are probably just another form of food to it, but good old-fashioned physical and chemical reactions, that's outside its evolutionary experience." Milo nodded enthusiastically. "It makes sense. When I hit it with the coolant, it reacted like nothing I'd seen before, almost like it was shocked that something could hurt it." "Exactly," Jack said. "Now, here's what we're going to need." The list Jack rattled off had Krax looking increasingly murderous and Vila increasingly fascinated. Industrial coolant, mining explosives, mechanical pressure plates, simple pulley systems, and perhaps most bafflingly, all the human beer that had been brought aboard the Luminari ship. "The alcohol is essential?" Vila questioned, making notes on her device. "Absolutely critical," Jack confirmed with a straight face. "The ethanol content has unique properties that will be vital to our success." "Then he's making that up," Krax growled. Jack winked at Milo. "Am I, though? You've tried everything in your advanced arsenal. What's the harm in trying my way?" Reluctantly, the alien delegation agreed to provide the requested materials. While they were gathering supplies, Jack and Milo refined the plan. "You really think this will work?" Milo asked when they were alone. Jack shrugged. "Honestly, no idea. But I do know that approaching this like we're hunting an animal isn't working. We need to approach it like we're dealing with an intelligent entity that perceives the world completely differently than we do." "And the beer?" Milo raised an eyebrow. Jack grinned. "That part's actually legitimate. A fermentation creates compounds that might affect its sensory perception. Plus, if this all goes sideways, I'd rather die with a drink in hand." 6 hours later, they had transformed the central processing chamber, a massive room filled with quantum crystal sorting equipment, into an elaborate trap. Mechanical pressure plates were hidden beneath floor panels. Cooling pipes had been rerouted to create what amounted to super-cooled zones. Drums of mining explosives were strategically placed behind reinforced barriers. And in the center of it all, a single case of Earth-made beer sat in an open space. "This is the bait?" Krax asked incredulously. "Not exactly," Jack explained. "The beer is just for show. The real bait is this." He held up a small device. "A standard emergency beacon," Vila observed. "Yep. According to Milo, this thing hones in on energy signatures. We're going to give it exactly what it wants. A nice, juicy power source to investigate. Meanwhile, we'll be waiting with surprises it won't expect." The plan was set. Jack would remain in the chamber with Milo, while Krax and his warriors positioned themselves at the designated fallback points. Vila would monitor from a shielded observation room, ready to implement contingency measures if needed. As the aliens moved into position, Milo sidled up to Jack. "You seem awfully calm for someone about to face an unkillable monster with nothing but some coolant and beer." Jack checked his shotgun one last time. "Who says I'm calm? I'm just good at hiding it." "Fair enough," Milo conceded. "But there's something you're not telling them about this plan, isn't there?" Jack smiled thinly. "Let's just say I have a theory about what we're really dealing with. If I'm right, this will work better than they can imagine. If I'm wrong, he shrugged. At least we tried something new. When everyone was in position, Jack activated the emergency beacon. Its rhythmic pulse filled the chamber with a soft blue light. Now we wait, Jack said, settling himself behind a barricade with his shotgun across his knees. They didn't have to wait long. Within minutes, the temperature in the chamber seemed to drop, despite the environmental controls. A shadow flickered at the edge of visibility, then another, as if the darkness itself was moving. There, Milo whispered, pointing to a vent high on the wall. Jack watched as something oozed through the grate, not breaking it, but somehow slipping between the metal slats as if they weren't there. It was dark, constantly shifting between solid and semi-transparent states, with a form that seemed to change moment by moment. Holy shit, Jack breathed. It's not adapting to energy weapons. It exists partially outside normal space-time. The creature dropped to the floor, its form coalescing into something vaguely reptilian, but with too many limbs and a constantly shifting surface that rippled like oil on water. It approached the beacon cautiously, seeming to taste the energy in the air. Now, Jack whispered into his con. Milo hit the switch. The coolant pipes burst open, spraying supercooled liquid across the floor. The creature shrieked, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once as the temperature dropped precipitously. For a moment, Jack thought it was working. The creature's form became more solid, more defined. Then it lashed out with a speed that defied comprehension. One moment it was in the center of the room. The next it was tearing through the coolant pipes, shredding metal as if it were paper. "Fall back!" Jack shouted, opening fire with his shotgun. The creature flinched as the buckshot tore into its now semi-solid form, but the wounds closed almost instantly. Milo triggered the second phase, a series of mechanical traps that sent metal plates slamming down from the ceiling. The creature dodged most of them, but one caught its flank, pinning it momentarily. That was all Jack needed. He hit the detonator for the mining explosives. The blast was deafening in the enclosed space. Dust and debris filled the air as the chamber's structural integrity alarms began to wail. When the dust settled, Jack peered out from behind his barrier. The creature was gone. "Did we get it?" Milo asked hopefully. A terrible screech answered his question. The creature burst through the floor, its form now fully corporeal, and it was angry. It lashed out at Milo, who barely rolled away in time. "Run!" Jack shouted, firing his shotgun to draw its attention, a fallback position. They barely made it to the reinforced door before the creature slammed into it, the metal buckling under the impact. Krax's warriors opened fire from their positions, energy weapons creating a dazzling light show that only seemed to enrage the creature further. As the door sealed behind them, Jack leaned against the wall, breathing hard. That didn't work. Milo stated the obvious. "No," Jack agreed. "But we learned something valuable." "What's that?" Krax demanded, joining them in the corridor. Jack's eyes gleamed with the light of discovery. "We've been thinking about this all wrong. The cold didn't hurt it, it just forced it to fully materialize. The physical traps only worked when it was solid. And did you notice how it reacted to the beer that broke open in the explosion? It seemed disoriented." Vila observed over the con. "Exactly," Jack said. "I think I know what we're dealing with now and I know how to kill it, but you're not going to like it." "Why not?" Krax growled. Jack grinned. "Because my new plan is even stupider than the last one." "You want to do what?" Krax's voice had risen to a pitch Jack hadn't thought possible for a reptilian. They had retreated to the command center, where the remaining survivors watched with a mixture of hope and skepticism as Jack outlined his revised plan. It involved even more coolant, all the remaining beer, a makeshift flamethrower constructed from mining equipment, and Milo dressed in a cooling suit. "It's quite elegant, really," Jack insisted. "The creature exists in a quantum state, partially in our dimension, partially in another. That's why your energy weapons don't work. They're just passing through its extra-dimensional aspects. And you determined this how?" A luminary technician asked skeptically. By watching it react to different stimuli, Jack replied. Cold forces it to fully materialize in our dimension. The physical trauma affects it when it's materialized, and the alcohol disrupts its ability to phase between states. Vila had been quiet, processing Jack's explanation. The ethanol molecules in the beer, they could potentially interfere with quantum field manipulation. It's not entirely illogical. Thank you, Jack said with a mock bow. The beer's not just for drinking, folks, though I did save one for later. He patted the lone bottle tucked in his belt. So your plan is to force it to materialize, trap it, douse it in alcohol, and then burn it? Cracks summarized incredulously. Pretty much, Jack confirmed. The cold makes it solid, the alcohol prevents it from phasing out, and fire does what fire does best. And you need me as bait, why exactly? Milo asked, eyeing the cooling suit with apprehension. Because it's gotten smart enough to avoid obvious traps, Jack explained. It needs to think it's catching us by surprise. You'll be protected by the suit, mostly, and I'll be right behind you with the coup de grace. The plan was insane. Everyone in the room knew it, but they were out of options and out of time. The creature had begun systematically destroying the remaining infrastructure that kept the command center secure. It's going to get in here eventually, Jack pointed out. But better to meet it on our terms than wait for it to corner us. Reluctantly, a consensus was reached. They would try Jack's crazy plan. 2 hours later, the trap was set in the main refinery chamber, a massive space with industrial smelters that had once processed the quantum crystals. The smelters were cold now, the power diverted to maintain the command center's defenses, but they would serve Jack's purpose perfectly. Milo stood in the center of the chamber, wearing the cooling suit modified with a device that emitted a low-level energy signature, just enough to attract the creature's attention. Around him, the floor had been covered with what looked like ice, but was actually solidified coolant, forming a slick surface that would be difficult to navigate at speed. Jack waited, breath fogging in the rapidly cooling air. Krax and his remaining warriors were positioned at the exits, ready to herd the creature back if it tried to escape. Movement in the eastern vent. Vila's voice came through the con. Thermal anomaly detected. Show time, Jack muttered. He gave Milo a thumbs up. The creature entered not with a roar but with an eerie silence, seeping into the chamber like liquid shadow. It paused, sensing the trap but drawn by the energy signature Milo was emitting. Jack could almost feel it thinking, calculating. Come on, you interdimensional bastard, Jack whispered. Take the bait. As if hearing him, the creature suddenly surged forward, moving across the chamber in a blur of motion. Milo yelped and triggered the coolant release. Pressurized jets erupted from concealed nozzles, filling the air with supercooled mist. The creature shrieked as the temperature plummeted, its form solidifying. It thrashed against the sudden materialization, tendrils of darkness trying to phase back into quantum uncertainty but failing as the cold intensified. Now, Milo, Jack shouted. Milo hit the second switch. The remaining beer, nearly 20 gallons of humanity's finest cheap lager sprayed from rigged containers, dousing the creature. The alcohol reacted with its surface, causing it to sizzle and smoke. It's working. Milo yelled, scrambling toward the exit. The creature, now fully material and glistening with beer, let out a roar that shook the chamber. It lunged toward Milo with terrifying speed, but slipped on the icy floor, crashing into a processing unit. That was Jack's cue. He leapt from his hiding place, flamethrower raised. "Hey, ugly. Ever hear the saying, hold my beer?" The creature whirled toward him, multiple eyes forming and dissolving across its writhing form. "This is for everyone you killed," Jack said, and triggered the flamethrower. A torrent of flame engulfed the creature. The alcohol ignited instantly, turning the monster into a writhing pyre. Its scream transcended dimensions, a sound that seemed to tear at the fabric of reality itself. Jack kept the flame steady, advancing as the creature tried to retreat. No escape this time. The monster, desperate and burning, made one final lunge at Jack. He stood his ground, continuing to stream liquid fire as the creature crashed into him. Pain exploded across his chest as a flaming tendril slashed him, but Jack didn't falter. He grabbed the final beer bottle from his belt, smashed the end against a railing, and jammed the jagged glass into what seemed like the creature's core. "Cheers," he growled, emptying the bottle's contents into the wound. The alcohol hit something vital. The creature convulsed, its form rippling between solid and energy. Then, with a sound like reality tearing, it imploded, collapsing in on itself until nothing remained but a small, crystalline object that clattered to the floor. Jack fell to his knees, clutching his injured chest. "Did we just win?" Milo approached cautiously, staring at the remains. "Holy shit! You killed it. You actually killed the unkillable monster." Jack managed a pained smile. "With beer and fire, best human solution ever." 3 days later, Jack stood in the Luminari ship's conference room, bandaged but vertical, facing the assembled Galactic Council representatives. The crystalline remains of the creature sat in a containment field on the table between them. "So let me get this straight," said the Luminari High Commissioner, who had personally traveled to Nexus 9 upon hearing of the creature's defeat. "You killed an interdimensional entity that defeated our most advanced weaponry with alcoholic beverages and combustion." "And cold," Jack added helpfully. "Don't forget the cold." Vila's scientific curiosity had overcome her cultural superiority. The creature appears to have been a quantum phase entity, capable of existing simultaneously in multiple dimensional states. The ethanol disrupted its phase-shifting capabilities, while the extreme temperature change forced it into a purely material form. In other words, Jack translated, it was a fancy ghost, and we performed the most low-tech exorcism in history. Krax looked like he was suffering from severe indigestion. The human's methods were unorthodox but effective. I recommend commendation. High praise from the lizard, Jack Stage whispered to Milo, who snorted. The High Commissioner studied Jack with all 4 eyes. "The Council acknowledges your service, Commander Donovan. The mining colony can now be restored, and the quantum crystal harvesting resumed." "Yeah, about that," Jack said, leaning forward. "You might want to reconsider. That thing wasn't alone." A shocked silence fell over the room. "Explain," the High Commissioner demanded. Jack pointed to the crystalline remains. "That's not just a corpse. It's an egg. Junior here was just protecting its nesting grounds, the deep caverns you were mining. I'd bet my last beer there are more where this came from." "Impossible." Krax objected. "Our scans would have detected." "Your scans didn't detect this one until it was eating your face," Jack interrupted. "These things exist partially outside normal space-time. You're not going to find them with a tricorder." The council members exchanged troubled glances. "What do you suggest?" Vila asked finally. Jack shrugged. "Leave this moon alone. Find your crystals somewhere else. Or," he grinned, "hire me as your consultant for primitive problems." "Consultant?" the High Commissioner repeated. "Yeah. Turns out you advanced folks sometimes need a human perspective. Someone who thinks outside your very fancy box." Against all odds. The council agreed. 1 month later, Jack Donovan found himself with a new title, Xenobiological Threat Response Specialist, and a contract that paid more in a month than he'd made in 5 years as a maintenance tech. As he sat in his new quarters on the council's central station, feet up on his desk and a cold beer in hand, Milo walked in with their next assignment. "You're not going to believe this one," Milo said, tossing a data pad onto the desk. "Sentient fungus taking over a terraforming colony." Jack took a long swig of his beer and smiled. "Have they tried shooting it yet?"